Okay, we have about 1.5 minutes until we begin America Free Radio. Just letting the chat room fill up and making sure all of the platforms are streaming all right. So just kind of hang out. Got about 65 seconds checking on Foxhole and making sure that it'll start up in about 3 minutes and we should be good to go. Very good, very good. America Free Radio will be live in about 1 minute. Okay. Let's go ahead and bring the studio in at Truth Frequency Radio Network. See where we go from here.
Protesters were forcibly in a park near the White House.
The Interior Department's Inspector General says U.S. Park Police removed crowds protesting the death of George Floyd so that a contractor could get started installing new fencing. About 30 minutes after police used pepper pellets and flashbangs. Then President Trump walked across Lafayette Park to deliver a short speech in front of St. John's Church while holding a Bible. The report found the clearing of the park was justified, but that law enforcement agencies failed to communicate adequately with each other and did not give sufficient warnings to protesters.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland at the White House. A Trump-era rule that narrowed the types of waterways qualifying for federal protection is now formally under review. The Biden administration filing legal action. The former president said the rules imposed unnecessary burdens on business. America is listening to Fox News. A state of emergency in Arizona over 2 wildfires.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR. Truth Frequency Radio.
First hour, here we go. Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future, and here the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We are streaming to you live from the Truth Frequency Radio Network through the America Free Radio studios. And this is where the Truth Freaks hang out. We are not afraid to let our Truth Freak flag fly. We are also streaming live on several video platforms: YouTube, Twitter, DLive, Facebook, Twitch, and Foxhole. And all of the archives are being preserved on Odyssey. So there's a variety of ways that you can access the truth. Also, thanks so much for the generous offer. Wow, right? Immediately in the chat room, Freedom contributed. Fan characters sending hearts with their hands. Thank you so much. All of this goes to a good cause. None of it goes in my pocket. It's all going into an account to support projects like the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. And I was not able to get a hold of Zach from last week with Red Pill 78, but I will get that donation to him this week. If he will respond to my email, I'll figure out a way to get the donation to him. And we wish him well with overcoming the global media empire, bringing down forces on his Patreon to prevent his friends from supporting his effort. We will make sure that that effort is met with more love and not fear or hatred. Blue Otter's out there. Hello, Brooks. Hello, everyone. Somewhere in San Diego County. Undisclosed location, I'm sure. And Freedom says we take Arizona. The dominoes will fall like broken glass. And Delina, no, I don't have a birthday in the works. My birthday was May 27th, and then all my kids are born in June. So this weekend we actually celebrated my kids' birthdays. So I gave them Jacob steampunk sunglasses. They're very cool, like movie set sunglasses. Very interesting design, and I like them a lot. So I gave those for a gift, and we had fun just having pizza and hanging out and watching TV, so it was fun. Let's see. We have a lot to go over tonight, and just keep the chat flowing. I'm also live on Foxhole, and I'll be watching the chat room there as well. We love our Foxhole family. I don't know what the gold pills are. Maybe somebody could tell me in the chat room of Foxhole what the gold pills are up at the very top. I'm not sure. I know there's some cryptocurrency involved in Foxhole, but I'm new to the community, so help me out a little bit. Also, let's see. First story tonight, we need to talk about the 2020 selection. There is more in the news, but then I can cover. But I want to make sure that you stay hopeful, because there's evidence that all 2.1 million ballots that were originally certified cannot be found, and this is a very big deal, because if there are missing ballots, then it means that they must decertify the Arizona election. If they decertify the election, that means that Joe Biden didn't win the state of Arizona, and that could shake the very pillars of the republic, because it appears that this was no accident. The lawyer who has been fighting for an accurate review of the 2020 presidential election in Antrim County, Michigan, as well, went on social media this week to charge the election system. There was accessed by an anonymous user remotely days after the election. Seems kind of strange, since the voting machine company Dominion was making the claim that the machines were not connected to the internet, but they were. Yes, that's right, Space Lincoln Landry. It is a ballad of missing ballots. Exactly right. Matthew DePerno, who previously said the evidence appears to show the machines could have been accessed remotely through the internet, and there existed software in the machines that would have allowed manipulation of the results. All of this, of course, has been denied, but now it's turning out to be true. The county was where suspicions of vote interference were raised immediately, because the GOP-leaning district was actually declared mysteriously to have voted for Virtual Joe last November. Officials later said there was human error, and, of course, President Donald Trump actually won the election. But it became representative of shady actions or results in not one, but up to 30 different states, all of which used the Dominion voting systems. So Michigan was one of 6 battleground states that drew charges of election fraud. Several states suspended counting on election night, as I predicted they would on Easter Sunday of 2020. I said there would be 5 to 6 states that would halt their vote in the middle of the night, shovel a bunch of ballots from Ballots R Us into the system, continue counting illegally through the night and end up switching the election for Virtual Joe, which is exactly what happened on election night. Several states were involved in this, and hours later, after massive ballot dumps of unfolded counterfeit ballots that were nearly 100% for Biden, the Democrat took the lead when counting resumed. So DePerno's lawsuit was erroneously dismissed, but actions are on hold because the judge said he expects an appeal, which DePerno confirmed he will pursue. And now DePerno has posted on social media. This happened this weekend. Number one, we have been lied to. The Antrim County election management system was remotely and successfully logged into anonymously on November 5th, 2020 at 5:55 p.m. and again on November 17th, 2020 at 5:16 p.m. Yes, that's correct. Remotely. Number two, those dates are significant because they correspond directly to the dates the county and the Secretary of State were trying to correct the intentional computer problems that subverted the election. These logons appear to have escalated privileges at the time of logon. Again, remotely. Not supposed to happen. This is a felony. He continued, number three, but we were told there was no internet connection. In an accredited system, an anonymous user should not be authorized by the accreditation authority, but would instead be required to enter a specific username and password to utilize the system. And number four, we were told there was no internet connection. We were told there was no remote access. We were told this was human error. And it turned out, again, to be all lies. This is fraud. This decertifies the Antrim County election. Secretary of State Benson should resign or should be impeached. Now, DePerno's social media statements did not include the documentation about the incident of the machines being accessed remotely, but that evidence presumably would be reviewed in his case challenging the integrity of the election in November of 2020. Of course, it's been sidestepped, it's been two-stepped, it's been blocked, it's been delayed, but no more. He had reported earlier that the machines could be reopened after an election was finished. The machines can then run more ballots through the tabulator, print off new tabulator tape with new ballots, and then backdate that tape to November. All of that is highly illegal. Somebody is going to prison. His lawsuit was dismissed partly because the judge said the state officials said they already had audited the outcome, and that's all they have to do is say that they did. They don't actually have to do it. That's the way their law reads. But the judge said he expected an appeal, and DePerno confirmed it will be pursued. So it's kind of been not adjudicated. It hasn't been finished. So DePerno also noted during an interview that his investigation into voting machines used in November election now is not limited to the state of Michigan. The scope is growing. So DePerno is fighting the case on behalf of Antrim resident William Bailey. 13th Circuit Court Judge Kevin Eisenheimer said, and I quote, "By deciding this motion, the court is not saying that there were no problems in the way that Antrim County conducted its November 2020 elections. The clerk has admitted that there were challenges and problems in the elections, although the hand count ultimately of the presidential election showed the results were largely consistent with the canvass totals that were entered by the state and reported by the county. Nor, he said, am I saying that the processing of election data here wasn't corrupted or corruptible. I don't have the facts to make that determination." He also said the plaintiff's reports and news of the day includes a computer hack recently of a main petro fuel pipeline on the East Coast. Might as well suggest that this is something the policymakers should be looking into in the future. If election results were to be held for ransom in the future, one could only imagine what would happen. I am saying that as pled, The plaintiff's request for an audit is not available. Anticipating the possibility of appeal, this court will take all pending motions under advisement. Now, the reason this is important because what's going on in Arizona is also going on in Pennsylvania, it's also going on in Georgia, it's also going on in New Hampshire. The fight in Michigan is one of several that have been stirring up fact checkers across the political spectrum in recent weeks. We're one of them. They insist the claims made by DePerno are in dispute, and that's because, they say, government officials have claimed there are safeguards in place to protect against fraud, but those are only hand counts and audits, none of which have actually been completed. So just days ago, here's what he explained. I'll tell you something we discovered this weekend. We can now show that after the election is done, somehow anyone really who has access to those tabulators can reopen the election, run more ballots through the tabulator, print off new tabulator tape, and with a new balance, and backdate that tape to November 3rd. That's the truth. So, DePerno said in this podcast interview this weekend, someone with access could do whatever they want. Fact checkers objected to his opinion, stating that many audits done in Michigan of elections all showed they've been accurate. And actually, that's a false statement. The fact checkers should say every time there has been an audit of any of the precincts in Michigan, it showed huge discrepancies, and in almost every single case showed that Trump actually won the election. DePerno also said recently in a court hearing that there were 1,061 phantom votes in the county during the 2020 presidential election because while a recount of ballots tallied 15,962, the Michigan Secretary of State's database only showed 14,901 votes were cast. See, every single time the numbers were compared, there were errors. Yes, Steve Y62 says the swamp is deep and wide. Yeah, well, you have no idea. Maybe by the end of tonight's program you will. Because I've got a lot of stuff I'm going to go over, and it's going to cover the swamp, the global syndicate, from a variety of viewpoints, and it's going to bring a lot of facts to bear, some of which were already previously hinted to way back in 2018. Oh, yeah, 2018. And if you read my book, Charm a Favor, you would know about them. Something that happened in a chapter of Charm a Favor has pertinence in the news today, actually yesterday. So let me give you a little update on Wars R Us. I'm sort of delaying tonight's lead story because I'm waiting for the robots that monitor this program to give up and go away. Oh, he's just talking about the election. Oh, he's just talking about some space stuff or some something that doesn't relate. We're not really watching this subject matter. So the robots will get tired and they'll drop off, and then we can discuss these things in detail. What is that? Space Lincoln Landry says China better take Taiwan quick. Actually, I think that would be the worst mistake they ever attempted. All right, let's talk a little bit about Wars R Us. Former Deputy National Security Advisor K.T. McFarland, he noted just a little bit ago that not even an administration assembled by Virtual Joe could screw up the Abraham Accords brokered by President Trump and his administration. But actually, that's not true, because they have been working overtime to try to undo President Trump's Nobel Peace Prize chances. At least it can suppress the name to change the dialogue about them. So a report from Israel 365 News explains that not only is Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals actively suppressing the name of the historic Trump-brokered deals between multiple Arab neighbors and Israel, it apparently is trying to dismantle the Abraham Accords in order to realign the U.S. with Iran and strengthen the Islamic regime. Now, who do you think would actually try to do such a thing? Could his name be Barack Hussein Obama? Could it be pushed by none other than Valerie Jarrett or John Kerry? Yes, it most certainly could. A report in the Tablet explained, and I quote, "The alliance between Israel and the Gulf states is an impediment to the dream of a re-empowered nuclear-armed Iran backed by the United States, which was Obama's main foreign policy aim, and an affront to peace processors convinced of their own never-ending importance," close quote. So the report continues on. It said, Virtual Joe and his band of criminals apparently aim to sink the Abraham Accords by penalizing Israel and its peace partners for getting too close and returning the Palestinians to center stage in order to prepare the ground for re-entering the Iran deal, close quote. There have been tense and strident changes regarding the name of the agreements. Why would the name be so important? Because anything Trump is bad to Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals. The Free Beacon explained that the Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals State Department discourages employees from referring to the historic peace agreement signed by Israel and its Arab neighbors by its official name, the Abraham Accords, according to one source with direct knowledge of Virtual Joe's internal decision-making process and emails reviewed by the Washington Free Beacon. Instead, Virtual Joe is calling the deals normalization agreements. They're changing the name. They're changing the frequency of the whole deal. In fact, the Accords name has even been erased from a wide array of official State Department communications. They were negotiated last year by the Donald Trump administration and paved the way for Israel to make peace with national Arab foes, including the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and later the Muslim nations, the report said. The Free Beacon reviewed 2 internal State Department emails detailing to employees that the agreements will no longer be referred to as the Abraham Accords, but only as normalization agreements. No reason was given for the policy, the source said. The department also purged the term Abraham Accords from its talking points, documents, statements, and official communications, adding that senior department officials had been very cagey about explaining the policy decision and have sought to keep it quiet. You see what they're trying to do? They're rewriting history. They're rewriting everything as though it's their idea. The report continues. Rumors of the policy first surfaced in early April when Associated Press diplomatic correspondent Matthew Lee pressed State Department spokesman Ned Price to just come out and say it. Just publicly state the official name of the peace agreements. Just say it. Just say the words. But Price bristled, and then he reluctantly called them the Abraham Accords. Price referred to the deals as normalization agreements 3 times when asked, but he finally admitted, I can say the term Abraham Accords, but we call them normalization agreements. Now, despite the historic agreements, which White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki recently claimed Trump didn't do anything constructive in the Middle East. Victoria Coates, who was on Trump's National Security Council, said, and I quote, Virtual Joe's administration, I put that part in, but you know what I mean. I can't say the word because, it will get me in trouble. Virtual Joe's administration attempts to diminish and marginalize the Abraham Accords by referring to them as normalization deals. It's both unfortunate and it's insidious. It's a shame to try to undermine such a monumental, historic achievement because it was reached by the previous administration. But the term normalization is even worse, as they are well aware the term carries a regional stigma, particularly with the Palestinians, of being a sellout. The Abraham Accords are so much more and should be given the same bipartisan support as the peace treaties between Israel, Jordan, and Egypt reached by Democrat administrations. Now, the deals, there were reports more were pending when Trump left office. He didn't get a chance to finish them because he was selected out of office, are with Morocco, Bahrain, Sudan, and the United Arab Emirates. So McFarland noted it's the first peace agreement between Israel and Arabs in not just 10 or 20. It's like a couple thousand years. What President Trump has done, as everybody was paying attention everywhere, he was able to craft an agreement and convince the Arabs that their only sort of prosperity platform, the only way they could get to peace and prosperity, was by having a peace agreement with Israel. President Trump's plan for the Middle East involved going directly to Israel's Arab neighbors and bypassing the Palestinians, who long have been an obstruction for any peace plans. President Trump was nominated for not one, not two, but 3 Nobel Peace Prizes based on his work on the agreements. And it is America that is brokering these deals with Israel and these Muslim nations, not Virtual Joe. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of all this. It's probably going to be undermined if Virtual Joe is left in the White House. The Arab nations are kind of waiting. They don't want to see this chance at peace slip out of their fingers. They don't want to see a nuclear-powered Iran. They don't want to see more rockets fired at Israel. It destabilizes the entire area. And they really enjoyed working with President Donald Trump because he was the first guy that actually kept his word and was actually dedicated to no more foreign wars. It's the first president that we've had in a long, long time that has not started a war during his first term. And as you could see, Virtual Joe is starting wars all over the world, and everything is becoming more and more unstable. I don't imagine that we'll last out the year without some kind of violent conflict. And that's a sad thing because we work so hard and so long and in so much faith to make sure that we had peace. Totally right, Steve Y62. He puts the dove of peace in the chat room, and I have total respect for that. And so we'll let Truth Frequency Radio go to their first break, and we'll hang out here and talk with people in the chat room. Yes, Israel has a new president. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight, too. He won just 6% of the vote, so it's not like he has a consensus. It's very difficult to actually build a government when you only have 6% of the vote. It's not like here. In the United States, you have to win more than 50% of the delegates in order to have a government. But in that country, all you have to have is the majority. And it is possible to win the majority with just 6% of the vote. Let's see. How in the world did that thing pop up there? Let's see if I can close those out. Some kind of pop-up. I don't know how to get rid of it. It's all right. That's no fair. Why are you up there? Let's see here. Let's see if I can go. Oh, okay. Now it went away. Some new pop-up with Microsoft that updated itself, and so now it pops things up on the cover. Yeah, I get it. In the text, they're saying, here you can cheat and win. Yeah, that's true. Winning is everything. You don't even have to have 18 million votes to win the presidency here. Yeah, I don't know, Mailer Damon. I think a lot of the other hosts on Truth Frequency Radio Network, I know what Trump derangement syndrome is, and I have to respect everybody and their viewpoint. I have a tendency to go with facts. I'm not so much an emotional person. I'm a scientist. And so I support President Donald Trump. I think he's a great man. I think he sacrificed everything to lead this country, and every waking hour did his very best to do so. Does it bother me that he tweeted a lot? No, not at all. In fact, I think it's kind of refreshing to know all the raw feeds straight from Donald Trump's mind. It's when everything gets filtered, everything Heels Up Harris does or Virtual Joe does is all prepped through a team of experts that just sit around and decide what the public needs to hear. And then you have Jen Psaki, who every single time she opens her face, she lies. So I miss Kayleigh McEnany. I miss her incredible intelligence. I miss her speaking the mind of President Trump and doing battle with reporters who attacked her every single day. And I think she was a hero for doing what she did and sticking with it as much as she did. When I see 11 more million people vote for somebody in the second term, 75 million, maybe 80 million people vote for Donald Trump, I'm very encouraged, because it shows participation. It shows faith in the republic. It shows that we were listening. It shows that we took action. It breaks my heart to see someone win by cheating, and I know it does yours too. Let's bring a TFR back in.
7 p.m. to 10 p.m.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue. Space Lincoln Landrew says, I'm more worried about 150 million dead vaccinated Americans. It's a good segue. And I'm not going to be drawn into a conversation about any other host. They have their right to feel the way they do and do their show the way they do. And I fought for their right to do that. So I don't have any problem with any other host. They can spend whatever time they want any way they want, and I will spend the time that I want to the way I want to. And we both have our audiences, and that's fine. That's the American way. We just we don't have to agree with one another. but we do have to respect one another. So I want to talk a little bit about the end of the Made-4-TV-Virus. There's still people trying to keep it alive, but you could see all around you. It's beginning to lose its grip. The truth is that the Made-4-TV-Virus could have been ended before it ever got started. And it doesn't take a tremendous amount of hindsight. The cure, yes, the cure was in hand all along. I told you about it for almost a year and how you could get past the propaganda police and get your doses of the cure without a prescription. People are finally realizing that the entire bioweapon system was designed to get the jab into as many Americans as possible before they found out about the cure and before they learned the vaccine could alter their DNA for generations to come. These are the facts, and there are no changing that. Ivermectin, which is a common over-the-counter antiparasitic drug, has shown great efficacy in the fight against the Made-4-TV virus. For the very first time, medical researchers this week have documented how ivermectin docks to the SARS-CoV-2 spike receptor binding domain. I have the link right in my notes. My notes will be accessible to you right after this program. All you have to do is go to my website at americafreeradio.com, click on the program notes, go to tonight's program, and you can open this paper and read it for yourself. These are the medical facts. It is attached to the ACE2 receptor. In this way, ivermectin effectively stops viral attachment and replication, assisting a precise antiviral response that can target the COVID-2 spike protein at its most advantageous cleavage site. In other words, if you take ivermectin as a prophylactic, you absolutely 100% positively will not get this disease. The virus will never enter your cells. The researchers showed how ivermectin interferes with the attachment of the spike protein to the human cell membrane. No attachment, no duplication. You don't get sick and the virus doesn't spread. That's called a cure. Ivermectin is a simple medicine. It's derived from the bacterium Streptomyces avermitilis. It weakens and kills parasites by interfering with their nervous system and muscle function. Ivermectin targets the glutamate-gated chloride channels in the parasite's nerve and muscle cells, bolstering inhibitory effects in the parasite's own neurotransmission. As the chloride ions permeate, the parasite cells are hyperpolarized and then polarized, resulting in their death, in their demise. In the study, ivermectin docked in a region of leucine 91 of the spike protein and at the histidine 378 of the ACE2 receptor. The binding energy and constancy of ivermectin was also measured and found it to be sufficient at the ACE2 receptor, proving the antiparasitic molecule as a powerful force for blocking viral attachment of the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein. The 17 randomized controlled trials that used ivermectin for early treatment and prophylaxis report 100% positive results. Not one single solitary patient in any of the 17 studies was even hospitalized. With an estimated improvement of 73% and 83% respectively, these are people that already had the disease. Out of 37 early treatment and prophylaxis studies for ivermectin, 97% reported positive effects. One of the studies documents how ivermectin inhibits the replication of the virus in vitro, and it displays broad spectrum antiviral activity against the causative virus. This study showed a 5,000-fold reduction. Let me say that again. A 5,000-fold reduction in viral RNA after just 48 hours. The study also proves that effective treatments and prophylactics can mitigate the replication and spread of a virus thousands of times faster than the paranoid isolationist approach of social distancing, masking, and lockdowns. If antivirals were encouraged early and often, then the spread of the actual virus would have been mitigated at rates thousands of times faster than the insane lockdown and treating everyone as though they are infectious. By treating actual infections where symptoms are present, the spread is reduced at magnitudes thousands of times greater, thousands of orders of magnitude greater, while conveying immunity instead of terror. But that wasn't the goal at all, was it? No. The goal was terror. The goal was to put you in solitary confinement. The goal was to smash the Trump economy. The Made-4-TV-Virus spike protein is designed to attach to angiotensin converting enzyme 2, or what's called ACE2 in humans. To see whether ivermectin could dock at this receptor site and block viral attachment, the researchers used a program. It was called AutoDock Vena Extended. This docking study showed the crystal structure of the virus spike receptor binding domain. The researchers looked specifically at the human ACE2 receptor and calculated the root mean square deviation of its atomic positions. A lower root mean square deviation value indicates a more accurate docking capacity. When the root mean squared deviation value is 3 or greater, no docking has occurred at the receptor site, and ivermectin did not dock at 9 of the locations. However, it did dock at the leucine 91 region of the spike in histidine 378 at the intersection of proteins between the Made-4-TV virus and the ACE2 receptor complex. What does this mean? Well, previous studies proved ivermectin's efficacy, but had to use high concentrations of the drug because the study relied on African green monkey kidney epithelial cells, which do not express the human ACE2 receptor. The Made-4-TV virus is specifically equipped to infect human ACE2 receptors. So the study could prove ivermectin to be effective in much smaller doses if it were used on humans. The clinical trials are now underway to determine if ivermectin is an effective treatment for COVID-19. The World Health Organization, this is the one everybody's been holding up as the example, right? The World Health Organization, the FDA, and the National Institute of Health have repeatedly suggested that no antiviral treatments exist for COVID-19, even though multiple antiviral herbs and drugs have been studied during previous SARS and MERS epidemics, and they have been found every single time to be effective. This time around, many of these antivirals were used with great effectiveness by doctors who were willing to go out on a limb and save lives, and that's exactly what they did. Chinese hospitals use various antiviral herbs to treat COVID-19 patients. These hospitals studied the effects of the herbs for impeding virus cell receptor binding. for stimulation of the host immunity, for blocking virus entry into host cells through action on the host's enzymes, and for preventing the Made-4-TV-Virus RNA synthesis and replication. And guess what the research found? Numerous phytochemicals were effective, including quercetin, ursolic acid, camphorol, isohamnitin, luteolin, glycyrrhizin, and apigenin. The top 3 most effective plants for treating COVID-19 included licorice root, chicory root, and hibiscus flowers. A number of antiviral plants containing compounds that target all 3 antiviral targets, including olive leaf, white horehound, black cumin seed, and garden cress. Also Judean wormwood, guava, chrysanthemum, and Merriam's flower. Medical systems around the world are not properly equipped to strengthen the human immune response or understand what individuals need to overcome an infection. When it comes to fighting infections, the US FDA, European drug regulators, they just parrot the same old narrative of ignorance and apathy, withholding viable antivirals from the public, which means millions of people died. They died needlessly. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people in the United States died, and there was a cure in our hands. And the global media empire suppressed that information on purpose so that people would die. That was their purpose. This suppression of science on antiviral treatments, it's paved the way for emergency use authorization of experimental vaccines and forced countless patients to suffer and die on ventilators without treatment. As many as 150 million people have been vaccinated needlessly. Coronavirus disease is an infectious disease caused by severe acute respiratory syndrome. According to the World Health Organization, there are no available vaccines nor specific antiviral treatments for COVID-19, and that is absolutely false information. Management involves the treatment of symptoms, supportive care, isolation, and experimental measures, among them the repurposing of old drugs. So on the 1st of May last year, in 2020, the United States gave emergency use authorization to the antiviral remdesivir for people hospitalized with severe COVID-19. It's a very expensive drug, and all it does is reduce the amount of time that you are in the hospital. One drug that has attracted interest in the antiparasitic compound is ivermectin, and a macrocyclic lactone derived from the bacterium Streptomyces avermatilis, I told you about. Ivermectin kills parasites by interfering with their nervous system. That's how it works. Ivermectin shows broad-spectrum antiviral activity. It is effective, it is cheap, and it is safe. And yet, the global media empire suppressed this information, which caused many, many people to die needlessly. They have blood on their hands, for sure. So, I have been telling you since January of 2020 that we are the cure. We always have been. Were it not so, we would have been wiped off the face of the earth a long time ago. In fact, I think it's pretty much accepted now that all of our DNA, especially the junk DNA, we don't really know what it's there for, may be a train wreck of broken pieces left from our various bouts throughout our genetic history with viruses. That's what's made up our DNA. So, contradicting the claims of the Faucists and the people at the FDA, a study by the prestigious Cleveland Clinic concluded There is no need to vaccinate people who have been infected with the virus. Once you've been infected with it and you've built up antibodies against it, you don't need to be vaccinated. The study found individuals with previous Made-4-TV-Virus infection do not get additional benefits from vaccination. And that's reported by newsmedical.net. The finding aligned with a study published last month in Nature by researchers at the Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis, concluding that even mild or asymptomatic cases of COVID-19 can produce lasting immunity that would guard against repeated infections. Those are the facts. Those are the medical facts. The Faucists, the White House coronavirus advisors, recently told Business Insider that vaccines are better than the traditional response you get from natural infection. And that is absolutely false. But the Cleveland Clinic study found there's no difference between the COVID-19 incident between previously infected and vaccinated participants. Not a single, not even one incident of Made-4-TV virus infection was observed in previously infected participants with or without vaccination. The Cleveland study monitored 52,238 employees of the clinic who received 2 doses of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine at an interval of 28 days. And guess what? Among them, 5% had previous viral infection. Now, a practical and useful message would be to consider symptomatic COVID-19 to be as good as having received a vaccine, and that people who have had the Made-4-TV virus confirmed by a reliable laboratory test, they don't need the vaccine. That's also the conclusion of Yale University epidemiologist Dr. Harvey Risch. He pointed out to a massive study in Israel, finding that people who had tested positive for the novel coronavirus in the previous 3 or 4 months had at least as much protection against the new infection, hospitalization, and death as vaccinated people. People become immune by surviving infection. That's the facts. That's the truth. In an email, Dr. Risch explained that serum antibodies and T-cell antibodies, the white blood cells that attack infections, demonstrate past history of infection. Risch said the FDA is correct that antibodies from infection are not the same as post-vaccination antibodies, but this is irrelevant, he contended. These natural antibodies are proof of past infection. Past infection is an extremely strong evidence of immunity. Now, this is where the controversy is, so I'm going to set it straight. You're listening because you want the truth and you want the facts. Everybody's scared, and you have reason to be. Dr. Marty McCarty, who's a professor at Johns Hopkins University, believes that both immunity through vaccination and through infection are probably lifelong. Those are the facts. And it can be maintained without boosters. There is more data on natural immunity than there is on vaccinated immunity by a long shot, because natural immunity has been around for many, many hundreds of years that we have actually documented. In a recent interview with Radio WMAL in Washington, D.C., this is what Dr. McCarty said. We are not seeing reinfections, and when they do happen, they're very rare, and their symptoms are very mild or are asymptomatic. That means people don't get sick. Senator Rand Paul recently said he's not going to get vaccinated because he's already got immunity through infection. Until they show me evidence that people who have already had the infection are dying in large numbers, are being hospitalized, or getting very sick, I just made my own personal decision that I'm not getting vaccinated because I've already had the disease and I have natural immunity. That's a fact. That's what he said. And he's a doctor. In November, several researchers told the New York Times that they had found that natural immunity from COVID occurred, and there were indications it is long-lasting. people infected with the closely related virus, the COVID-1, have been shown to be immune for at least 17 years, according to a study published by the journal Nature. What's CRM? I don't know. It could mean a lot of things. If you're vaxxed, the CRM takes you. I don't know exactly what that is, and I don't know any of the downsides of being vaxxed, other than you're changing the human immune system permanently, and the reverse transcription errors are hereditary, and they can be passed on to your children. That's what I do know. No, Karch Gibba. Never going to happen. No. DeSantis, Agnew, 2024 presidential candidates. Not going to happen. No one with the last name Agnew should ever be in politics ever again. Those are my feelings, and I'm sticking with it. I also want to thank all of my friends on D Live. I'm going to go ahead and load up the bank with lemons. Let's go ahead and put a little over 100 in there. And at the top of the hour, when we come back, in next hour, I'll give away some lemons on D Live. That'll give you a chance for people to slide over there and take advantage of the cryptocurrency lottery. We have about 2.5 minutes in this hour on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, which is where the Truth Freaks hang out. I will encourage you need to sign up for the newsletter because it's free. That means it don't cost nothing. And I give away all kinds of stuff in the newsletter. Next Saturday is the webinar coming up again. Okay, this is the Manifestation Masterclass. I encourage you to sign up. It's the best $47 you're going to spend on yourself. We're running it a little bit later this month because June is the month of birthdays for the Agnew clan. So we had all of that, got all that out of the way yesterday. We were going to ride our motorcycles together, but it rained all day. So we just got together and had pizza and watched TV and laughed a lot. But next weekend at noon Eastern time is Class 1. There are 2 classes, 2 consecutive Saturdays. It's going to be a pretty good-sized class. Last month, I was called to work the second Saturday. So I'm going to re-extend the class to all the members from May, and you're invited to join us in June for free because you already paid. And I'll be sending out free copies of Remembering the Future, the Physics of the Soul, and Time Travel to all those that have signed up to the class. And so I encourage you to do that. It's a 5-hour class. Promise you it's the best 5 hours you're ever going to spend on yourself. You get a recording of the entire class section, a session, and you get a signed copy of the book. So it's a great value for $47. I want to see you there. So that's next Saturday. Just go to my website, brooksagnew.com, and just click on the webinars link, and you can sign right up. Easy peasy, easy to do. All right, we'll take a quick break with Truth Frequency Radio Network. They got to take a break at the top of the hour and run their commercials. And we will stay with you on all the video formats. So let me... we got about 12 seconds, and as soon as the music starts playing, then I will send them on their break, and then we'll get on to the next subject. All right. A lot going on. Yeah, and I'm watching all the chats. You people in Foxhole are really doing a great job. Patriot News is live. Salty Crackers live. Red Pill Project is live. Red Pill 78's live. PSB, John Stubbins was on earlier today. So there's a lot going on Foxhole, and we encourage you to Visit all of them. They're all great hosts, and they all do a great job. All right, so there goes TFR for its 3-minute break. Let's see, Foxhole, what do we got here? Well, thank you very much, Skeeter Burke. He says, I was going to mow the lawn, but then you went live. Thank you very much. That is good to know. I take precedent over growing grass. I like that. Very good. First step is admitting you have a problem. But that's never going to happen. Well, I admit I have a problem when I have one. But you're right. Government kind of gets in the way. And you're going to be a little amazed tonight because if you haven't read Charm of Favor, then you're probably going to be taken a little aback by this next piece. But I was certainly blown away by it, but I have no doubts that it's true. When I was writing Charm of Favor, it was like I don't know, it was like I was channeling something, like I was tapped into Looking Glass itself. And the truth just seemed to flow. And the more it came, the more the book drew me in. And it was evident that I was on to something because when I published the book in December, within 2 weeks, it was #1 on Amazon. And it's been in the top 100 for a couple years. So lots and lots and lots of people get it. And the interesting thing about the book is, it has a subtitle, the rise of the Clinton crime syndicate. And I thought, well, I'll take the book to some of the events, where I speak. But I'm kind of a cross between a spiritual lecturer and a scientific lecturer. And I was thinking that maybe the book was a little bit too conservative to take to those audiences. But got a horse in my eye, and it's galloping. The book sold out. I mean, even before birth, it just went. What is that? Oh, you had to have a channel, Charm of Favor. Yeah, well, that's true. It was like channeling. It was like I could see it happening, and I was just in the room writing it down, and it was that powerful. It was that clear. And we'll bring Truth Frequency back at the top of the hour. Here we go. Second hour beginning right now. No, I really don't believe I had a connection with Hillary. I don't think that was it at all. I think I had connections. There's 40 chapters to the book, and each one was like I have fictional characters in the book, and the fictional characters carry you through the true events. But most of the characters in the book are real. They're the real people, real names, the real events, and that's what it's sort of like being carried through history on the backs of fictional characters, and you get to experience this stuff. So what would you say if I told you that half the money that Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals stole from taxpayers and dropped from helicopters was stolen and smuggled out of the country? What would you do if I told? It would piss you off, wouldn't it? I mean, it would. It pisses me off. but as much as half of the unemployment benefits paid by the U.S. government over the past year may have been stolen through fraud, with the bulk ultimately ending up outside the country, likely into the hands of foreign crime syndicates in China, Nigeria, Russia, and elsewhere, according to Axios' Felix Salmon. According to some estimates, unemployment fraud during the pandemic could easily reach $400 billion, as states weren't prepared for the unprecedented wave of unemployment claims. States knew that fraud was inevitable because it was a whole lot of money, and it was just anybody that could fog a mirror or ever did fog a mirror was written a check. There was no checking. There was no background check. How did they even get our information? How did they even know our bank account numbers? See? Anyway, they opted to rush the money out to people with minimal oversight because they thought they were doing the right thing. Well, no, not really. They didn't think they were doing the right thing. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were buying votes. And according to Blake Hall, who's a CEO of a company called ID.me, it's a fraud prevention service, America has lost over $400 billion in 1 year to fraudulent claims, with as much as 50% of all the unemployment payments possibly being stolen. Now, I would be embarrassed at 5%. I would shave my butt and walk backwards and never show my face in public again if 10% of the benefits were stolen. 50%? 50% is not just neglective. It's criminal. 70% of the money stolen by imposters ultimately left the country. Yeah, it just packed it away. The rest of the money was likely stolen by street gangs domestically. They gamed the system. How does it work? Well, you see, the scammers, they steal personal information and they use it to impersonate the claimants. Other groups trick individuals into voluntarily handing over their personal information. And there are mules. These are low-level criminals, which are given credit cards and asked to withdraw money from ATMs. That money then gets transferred abroad, often via Bitcoin. But the big picture, before the pandemic, unemployment claims were relatively rare and generally lasted for such short amounts of time that international criminal syndicates, they didn't really view it as a lucrative target. People didn't stay unemployed very long. It was a pain in the ass. You had to apply for work, and if you turned down work, you lost the benefits, and, it was more trouble than it was worth. It was so much easier to just get a damn job. Just get a job, go to work. Now, what's more, unemployment fraud can now be obtained on the dark web, on the software as a service basis, similar to ransomware. And naturally, states without fraud detection services in place are the top targets. Of course, they're all Democrat states. Why? Because they have sanctuary cities. They have illegal immigrants living in those cities, and they want to get them money. And so they don't put these fraud protection systems in place because they don't want to catch the illegal aliens. So what this means is that the U.S. economy, it wasn't helped at all. It wasn't even helped a little bit by the helicopter cash sent out to bank accounts all over the country. They didn't know. They didn't care. And that would be hundreds of billions of dollars that did nothing but make foreign thieves rich. You see, the Obamonomics worked exactly as planned. The consumer price index jumped 0.6% in May, after having jumped 0.8% in April, and 0.6% in March. All three are the steepest month-to-month jumps since guess when? Yep, since Obama was elected the first time, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. For the 3 months combined, the Consumer Price Index jumped by 2%, or an annualized pace of 8.1%. That's 8.1% inflation. We haven't seen numbers like that since Jimmy Giveaway Panama Canal Carter. This current 3-month pace of inflation, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, has nothing to do with the now infamous base effect in preparation for these crazy times. See, the base effect applies only to year-over-year comparisons. That doesn't apply here. On a year-over-year basis, including the base effect, but also including the low readings of last fall, which reduced the 12-month rate, okay, the Consumer Price Index rose 5%, the largest year-over-year increase since Obama was elected in 2008. In terms of the politically incorrect way of calling consumer price inflation, the purchasing power, which is what we really are looking at here, the purchasing power of the dollar, of the consumer dollar, that's the cash you have in your wallet, everything denominated in dollars for consumers, including, your labor, has dropped by 0.8% in May. That's insane. And that's according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. 2.4% over the past 3 months. That's the biggest 3-month plunge in buying power since 1982. Yeah, 1982, almost 40 years ago. So, and if you look at this graph, it's horrible. It's like a steep hill from 2007 to 2020. On an annualized basis, you see, they try to make it all these small numbers because you're looking at 1 month at a time. 0.4, 0.6, 0.8. Well, that's not really that much. That's less than 1%. But if you annualize it, if you say, okay, that's in 1 month. What if you annualize? What if you say that on a 12-month basis? The 3-month drop in purchasing power amounted to a drop of a whopping 9.5%. You know what this means? It means that by the time we get to Christmas, right now it's just June, right? I mean, this year is, it's flying by. I know, I can't believe it. It was like just Valentine's Day. And now it's June. So, but by the time we get to Christmas, your dollar's only going to be worth 80 cents. 80 cents. I hate to tell you this, but that's a 20% cut in pay. Who among you is excited about that? Who among you would elect that? None of you would elect that. You see, the current plunge in purchasing power, it's not temporary. It's permanent. And the plunge in purchasing power in the future, it's also going to be permanent. And old dog, you nailed it. You nailed it right there. Buy silver. You see, if you can buy silver, if you can convert cash, now I'm not saying go take your next paycheck and convert it into silver. I mean, you could, but silver is a storage metal. Okay, what you're trying to do with inflation, what you're trying to do with silver, is hedge the inflation. And what that basically means is you're freezing the value of your dollar once you buy silver. So let's say you buy 3 10-ounce bars of silver. That's a little less than $1,000, okay, $1,000. So you have, let's say, $3,000 in your savings account at the bank or in your checking account that just stays there month after month. I mean, it's a good idea to say, oh, yeah, well, let's just keep, a month's supply of money on hand in your checking account. I'm down with that. I'm down with it. But if you have several $1,000s that's just sitting there month after month, and you don't have bills to pay with it. You don't have debts that need to be paid off. You should take 25% of that, at least 25% of it, and you should freeze its value in silver. And yes, you could do gold. I have somebody texting me from out in California saying, why not gold? But gold is harder to buy because it's more expensive. It's, close to $1,700 an ounce right now. Ounce is a little, thing about this big. It's like this big. Silver, a 10-ounce bar is a 10-ounce bar, right? 2 bars is over a pound, right? 20 ounces. So it's significant. It's affordable because the silver is being shorted. And when you hold on to that silver, I get it. Hollow Earth guy says silver and gold are too manipulated. I gave up on both. Cryptocurrency is manipulated, but there's way better information, and you can figure it out. I get it. Look, I own 4 different cryptocurrencies right now, and I'm losing money on all of them. Every single one of them is down 30%. Everything. Bitcoin, Dogecoin, what is the other one I have? Polycom or whatever it is. Every single cryptocurrency I got, I'm losing my ass on them. I don't lose money on silver. I don't lose money. I got boxes of the stuff. I could bail myself out with silver if I wanted to. Cryptocurrency is a loser because you got nothing. You got nothing. You have a number. You have some electronic smoke and mirrors. Silver, you got something solid in your hands, and you could take it to any pawn shop and convert it into cash and make a car payment or a rent payment or buy groceries with it. And it's not going to lose value. Yeah, I know. See, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you buy. They all lose money. All the cryptocurrencies are so volatile. They go up and down. And, of course, people say, well, don't panic, hold on to it. Yeah, that's a little difficult to do when you put $10,000 into a cryptocurrency and the next day it's worth $2,000. Hold on to it. Yeah, hold on to it. Most people don't have that kind of money to throw up a horse's ass, okay? So, durable goods inflation, which is not gasoline, it would be like a refrigerator or furniture or some durable good, something that's going to last that you can turn into an asset and own. It exploded 10.3% from a year ago. And that's on the low side. On the low side. Look at lumber. Look at concrete. Yeah. Have you ever tried to pour a sidewalk lately or pour a driveway? It's insanity. 300, 400% it's gone up. Did the raw materials go up? No, didn't go up. It's just artificially inflated because of the money that Virtual Joe and his gang of criminals have pumped into the system. Look at the used vehicle consumer price index. Yeah, used cars up 30 freaking percent. 30% in 1 year. 7.3% just in May. Now, I've been fuming about this and dissecting the reasons behind this price surge based on data from the auto industry. I've been in it my entire life since I was a teenager. I've never seen anything like this. And it's now seriously showing up in the used vehicle consumer price index. Don't believe me? Do a little shopping. Go to Nirvana. Go to Car Trader, go to eBay, anywhere, you'll see it. It's insane. It's insane. And this totally blows out of the water this idea of a base effect. It's off the charts, okay? Now, these quality adjustments over the last few years, have held down the consumer price index for vehicles. There's been a glut of used cars everywhere. And when there's a glut of something, the price goes down. You buy a new Ford pickup and 3 years later you trade it in. That Ford pickup practically gets wholesaled. Nobody wants $35,000 in a vehicle stuck on their lot. It's crazy. You're going to start paying insurance on it. Or not insurance, but interest on it. and insurance for sure. So let's see here. The index in 2020 was below where it had been 20 years earlier, even as in the real world, used vehicles got a lot more expensive. Only scary, crazy price spikes in May and April pushed the index above its level 20 years ago. Now, these hedonic quality adjustments, they're applied to account for improvements in vehicles over the last few years. In other words, the vehicles are lasting longer. Motors are getting 500,000 miles on them. Transmissions are way better than they've been in years past. They were grenades. And you didn't know. You bought it, it started slipping, you traded it. You got rid of it before it blew up on you. And, people went from 3-speed automatics to 10-speed electronically controlled transmissions. I have a 6-speed electronic transmission on my Ford pickup. And the price increases theoretically associated with the quality improvements are removed from the consumer price index. So we're trying to balance all this out again, so we're comparing apples and apples. So in theory, the consumer price index attempts to measure price changes of the same item over time, like for like. And when the price changes based on improvements, it's not really inflation, right? Because you're getting more value. You're getting more because you're getting a better value vehicle. Now, in practice, this has led to a consistent, purposeful, politically convenient, bipartisan understatement of inflation as measured by the CPI. But new vehicle consumer price index has repressed by hedonic quality adjustments. So the quality adjustments have practically eliminated the appearance of inflation as measured by CPI in new vehicles, even though new vehicles have gotten a lot more expensive, with the cheapest cars disappearing from the automakers' lineups. Why? Because they're not making any money on them. They don't want to make Ford Focus anymore. They don't want to make the Fusion. They don't want to make the Fiesta. They don't want to make the Cruze. They're trying their best not to make them. They want to send them to Mexico. They want to send them to China. They only want to make trucks because that's what they make money on. And nevertheless, year over year, vehicle prices rose 3.3%, the biggest increase since 2012, right in the middle of the Obama administration, despite these quality adjustments. Now, you watch this index. It used to rise into the mid-1990s, at which point the quality adjustments were applied and forced the index back down. But for a dose of reality, data from the auto industry shows that the average transaction price of new vehicles sold to retail customers in May, it jumped to a stunning $38,255. Yeah, that's insanity. Based on data provided by J.D. Power, the ATP has jumped by 28% over the past 7 years since Obama's presidency, 2014. Note the huge jump since June of 2020. It's a hockey stick. It's an absolute hockey stick. And why is that happening? It's happening because the agencies, departments, bureaus, and administrations are forcing the car companies to venture into areas that they're not making money. And in order to do that, they have to raise prices. What was that? You're exactly right. Electric vehicles. That's exactly right. The politics of the day, Virtual Joe and his band of criminals are forcing car makers to make electric vehicles. They don't want to make them. Look at Lordstown. Lordstown has now gone through, $2 billion? And looks like they're going to run out of money. They're not going to be able to introduce their pickup truck. The market makers have totally kicked their ass. Trucks caught on fire. Trucks ran out of charge. Trucks were too heavy. They weren't safe. And so the price kept going up. The quality kept going down. They could never get the things off the assembly line. Look at Rivian. Look at all the other truck makers. Look at Cybertruck. You think that's ever going to go into production? No. Now, what is this scam now? Oh, 100,000 people now want the electric Ford F-150. Bull crap. Why in the world would Ford make an electric truck that competes with their most profitable truck in history? Not going to happen. That business model doesn't hunt. It doesn't work. It's all hype. It's a lie. The Ford F-150 electric will never go into production. It will never go into production. They will lease some. They'll make some splash at it. But the Ford F-150 is Ford Motor Company. That is their profit. That is their bread and butter. That vehicle is what makes the $4 billion in annual profits for Ford Motor Company. The electric truck is going to make zero, nothing. Any money they make on it is going to come right out of the profits of the Ford F-150. Ridiculous. And what's worse is the major car makers are spending lots and lots of money to make sure other electric vehicle companies like the Condor, like the Rivian, like the other vehicles, Workhorse and others, never see the light of day. Why? Because they might peel off a customer or two. They might end up not having to make as many Ford F-150s in 2021 as they made in 2019. See? Hollow Earth guy says electric vehicle batteries cannot be recycled. They are a huge environmental problem. Actually, that's not quite true. They can be recycled. The lithium iron phosphate and the cobalt can be recycled, but they don't. There are no companies set up to do it. Now, I own stock in 3 different lithium mines, and the stock has either been flat or gone down in value in the last year. What does that tell you? It means that they're not making car batteries like they were. They're not making electric batteries for electric vehicles like they were. Because if they were, those mines would be blowing and going. Did you know that 2 years ago, you're going to learn something. We price lithium iron phosphate batteries based on amp hours. So if you have, let's say, a 300 amp hour battery cell, normally those cells 2 years ago, if you got a really good price on them, you could buy them for 85 cents an amp hour. So do the math. That's about, what, $255 for a single battery. And a normal vehicle will have anywhere from 48 to 96 of these batteries. Now, do the math. That's expensive. It's about a $15,000 battery pack. That was 2 years ago. This year, you can buy the same battery for 43.4 cents per amp hour. I hate to tell you this, but that's about a 50% drop in price. Yeah. If you drop the price, you're not making as much profit. That's why the lithium mine companies are not making money. And if the supplier's not making money, they're not going to stay in business. The business model cannot be supported. So when you talk about lithium and cobalt that's been mined, it's been refined, it's been turned into an anode, been turned into the cathode, it's been turned into the electrolyte for the battery. It's already done. And then you're saying, okay, now this battery's a brick. It's been out there 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. We now need to recycle this battery. Well, I'm sorry. There are no companies out there that do that. So what do the companies do? When somebody takes in their Toyota Prius, let's say, Toyota Prius will go about 40 miles on a charge on a battery that's in the car. Now, what most people will do when that battery pack wears out after about 4 or 5 years of owning the vehicle, they take it to Toyota and they replace the battery, right? No, that's not true. That's not what they do, because the Toyota battery is very toxic and it's very expensive. And so people don't do that. So they take it to companies who reload Priuses. They take the Toyota battery out and they replace it with a much higher watt density lithium iron phosphate battery, usually, because we're not talking about a water-cooled battery here. We're talking about an air-cooled battery. And now the vehicle will do 80 miles on a charge instead of 40 miles on a charge. So it's a way better Prius now. But what did they do with the old battery? Yeah, I hate to tell you, off to the landfill. Nobody recycles them. Same with the Nissan. Same with all the electric vehicles. The landfill fills up with lithium batteries because they don't recycle them. So you're exactly right. That's not what happens. What is that? You said Brooks didn't know. I didn't know what. Oh, I had to buy another safe. Right. Silver's so bulky. Small safes. Yeah. I mean, it's heavy. It's not as heavy as gold, but it is heavy. A 10-ounce bar is about the size of your cell phone. It weighs 10 ounces. Nobody would want to pack around a cell phone that weighed 10 ounces in their pocket, right? That would eventually tear through your pockets and make your purse kind of heavy too. So, no, cell phones are a lot lighter than that. A guy make a water-powered car. Mailer Damon, we could go into that another time. I'm here to tell you that nobody's made a car that runs on water, okay? It runs on hydrogen and oxygen, which is the electrolytically cracked water molecule into its base components of hydrogen and oxygen. We call that boom gas. But the heat of enthalpy, which is the amount of energy that it takes to break the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen in order to get O2 and hydrogen protons separated, is more energy than you get back by lighting a match or striking a spark and allowing them to come back together explosively. That's why we call it boom gas. So, in other words, it takes more energy to make the gas than you get back out in drive force. So the only way that, hang on a second while I bring Truth Frequency back in, Truth Frequency Radio back in, we'll let their intro music play.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Okay, we kind of got sidetracked on alternative energy, but I'll go ahead and answer the question because it came up in the chat room and it's an important one. Nobody's ever made a car that you just put water in the gas tank and drive it. Okay, that never existed. The only car that actually operated on water was also loaded with batteries. And what the batteries did is they provided the electricity to crack the water apart into its base components of hydrogen and oxygen. Then the hydrogen and oxygen were pulled through a injection system or a carburetor into the combustion chamber, sparked, compressed, caused the vehicle to drive. Now, it's very low power, okay? It's worse than the difference between unleaded gas and unleaded gas with ethanol. Unleaded gas with ethanol is not very powerful. You actually lose power in your vehicle by running ethanol. In fact, your mileage drops so far running the 10% ethanol gasoline that the benefits of putting ethanol into the gas, we call this E85 or E90, where you're basically 90% gasoline and 10% ethanol, or 85% gasoline and 15% ethanol, your mileage drops so far that the benefits of having the ethanol are written off. It may cut down on the pollution a little bit, but you have to drive the vehicle more time or use more fuel in order to get the same distance, so it's a wash. Well, it's the same thing with boom gas. If you try to run a vehicle on boom gas, you get about a third the energy that you do from gasoline. And not only that, but the cylinder walls don't last very long because the reaction creates steam, and the steam removes the lubrication off the cylinder walls, causing them to rust. So the rings that are going up and down in your cylinders end up scratching the block, and you end up ruining your engine. Just ask your grandfather sometime about that time you put the water in the gas tank, and then he went to mow the lawn and fired it up and seized up the engine. That's why. So, and you can do all the rumors that you want. One guy had a one-car accident, and mysteriously the secret technology that he had was stolen, and nobody ever recovered it because it never existed, okay? You can't just pour water in your gas tank and drive. And not only that, why would you want to, huh? Don't we have a water shortage anyway? You want people filling up their gas tanks with 20 gallons of water and to get 200 miles down the road, and their engine is destroyed and their fuel system's all full of rust and gunk. And where did the drinking water go? Oh, sorry, I drove my car. I don't want people using drinking water for driving cars anyway. It's stupid. It doesn't make any damn sense. I'm just telling you. That's not green energy. It's a waste of energy. Gasoline is way, way more efficient than that. Way more efficient. But we've spent, trillions of dollars on technology to refine gasoline since the early 19th century. We've been using it. So, trust me, trains and planes and automobiles and trucks and all that are as efficient as they can be, and they're getting better all the time. Fuel injection's way more efficient at internal combustion than that used to be. Yes, ethanol's also corrosive, and they have to change tubing. That's correct. And ethanol, as you know, is hygroscopic. It means it absorbs moisture out of the atmosphere. And if you have a tank full of ethanol gasoline in your vehicle and it sits all summer long without you driving it, it's going to turn into goo. And you're going to have put some additive in your tank to get rid of the goo at the bottom of your tank. Yeah. There are things that are more efficient, but they're also expensive because the infrastructure isn't there. For instance, a zinc air battery. Okay, a zinc air battery is very efficient. You could recharge it in a matter of minutes, 10 or 15 minutes. You know how you recharge it? You drain out the electrolyte and you pour in fresh electrolyte. And then the system that you drained your old electrolyte into, it recharges that electrolyte. It takes a few hours for it to do it, but you're on your road. The problem is that unless you're in the military, there are no zinc air battery refilling stations. So you have to do it the old-fashioned way. You have to recharge your electrolyte while it's in the vehicle, which takes time. You have to transfer energy from your socket, your wall socket or your charger, into the chemistry of the vehicle. That takes 8, 10, 12 hours to do. That's the way electric vehicles work, okay? And if you do recharge your battery in 30 minutes, you're not going to get 100% charge, but I bet you can get 80% charge. If you do that very often, you're going to have a brick for a battery. It's no longer going to be a battery. Every single time you rapid charge your battery, you reduce the life of that battery. Batteries are made to charge slowly over time, and that's how they last a long, long time. You can get them to last 20 years or more if you take care of them. You rapidly charge them, you're going to trash your battery. All right, let's go down to the next story here, because this is breaks my heart. Charm of Favor, if you have not read the book, I want you to. I will give you the audiobook for free if you buy the paperback or the Kindle versions. Go to my website, you buy it from my website, and as soon as you make your purchase, you write me and I will send you the audiobook link for free. But there's another name to add to the flawless list of stories in this #1 bestseller, Charm of Favor. The rise of the most ruthless and powerful crime syndicate the world has ever known is considered a myth by the fake stream news. It is the unbreakable cord of truth that supports the false matrix for those who have read the book and felt the spirit of the darkness that floats the eternal dragon of evil. I ask you to never forget the innocent people who were witnesses, who were lawyers, who were policemen, who were reporters, presidents, ambassadors, political staffers, and even authors who dared to expose the humans who are members of this diabolical crime syndicate. There is no place to hide, and there is no protection from this syndicate. As long as good men do nothing and we use the tactic of forgiveness and forgetting, they will continue to die, one by one, alone in the night. Their friends will quietly curse. Their followers will demand something be done. The syndicate will walk in the day without fear, knowing the demons will never sleep until every enemy is dead. Well, it happened again. Christmas of 2018, Charm of Favor was published, and it raced to #1 in less than 2 weeks. It stayed in the top 100 books on Amazon for nearly 2 years. The murders, the larceny, the perjury, and the terrorism that are the mainstay of the global syndicate keep eroding our lives. And the warning is real, and the victims continue to fall. In the book, there's an entire chapter on Christopher Sine, the former Alabama football star who became a reporter for ABC in Phoenix, Arizona. He got a tip from a source in Baltimore that Obama's Attorney General Loretta Lynch, after giving a speech that night, altered her flight plans to arrive hours ahead of schedule, virtually without a wink of sleep. Her and her husband, the only witness on earth who could not be compelled to testify against her, flew to Sky Harbor Airport to meet in the wee hours of the morning with Bill Clinton to make a deal to save Hillary from prosecution for obstruction of justice. Chris showed up to witness it. The chapter in the book puts you on the tarmac that morning. It connects you with the fear Chris felt and the struggle in his own mind that ensued to tell the story or not. Yesterday morning, 911 got a call at 8:13 about a person down at a residence. When police and fire arrived, they found Chris Sign dead. The Clinton crime syndicate had Chris Sign assassinated because he broke a story that was politically damaging to them. It is a syndicate that is built upon the principle of revenge. It goes without saying that every single authority that declares that death a suicide is in on this. Nobody will ever look into this sufficiently to question that finding. Chris Sign's death serves as a warning about who really runs the country. The closer Arizona gets to revealing the fraud in the 2020 selection of Virtual Joe, the more important it is to send a shockwave of fear throughout the world. Whoever crosses the Clintons will pay with their life, no matter how long it takes. There is a shared belief that it is dangerous to speak these unspoken assumptions aloud. I am unafraid. The result of all of the above is fear, emotional paralysis, and an inability to truly stop and think about what actually happened here. Most likely this story will come and it will go, scaring the hell out of people, silently shared and serving as an unconscious trigger and warning about what happens to those who speak truth to power. The global media empire will define what is true, and whoever questions that seriously will be called names like conspiracy theorist. And maybe it's true that it was a hit, and people were paid to say that it wasn't. If that is true, and truth remains hidden, then Trump did not eliminate the deep state at all. Think about how frightening that is, if true. The implications, if we are back to square one, if you are like me, you're sick and you're enraged about the word investigation. I don't ever want to hear it again. No more investigations. If the arrests had been made in 2016 the way the truth demanded by Chris Sign's report, then he would still be alive. He would still be watching his kids play ball in the evenings and fishing with them on the weekends. He would still be smiling and joining his friends for barbecues. He was 45. Let's air out the story around his death instead of pushing it under the rug as usual. He used his life to tell the truth, and in doing so, help you, the public. We should return the same good deed in his memory. Chris Sign mattered. They killed him, just like they killed Seth Rich, just like they killed Danny Casolaro, American freelance writer who came to public attention way back in 1991 when he was found cut to pieces on August 10th in a bathtub in room 517 of the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg, West Virginia, the day before his scheduled testimony about the Clinton crime syndicate before Congress. The medical examiner ruled that death a suicide as well, just like Vince Foster and countless others. This is why I told my story in Charm of Favor. We will never forget. Sorry about the emotion, but it pisses me off. Chris Sign was a good man. Yes, Hastings as well. Michael Hastings, his car destroyed in Santa Monica. All right, contact tracing. The core technology behind this vaccine. Heavy-hitting surveillance under the guise of contact tracing. As if the drones from China weren't eye-opener enough, we now moved into contact tracers digging into your personal life. Quarantine camps, mandatory masks in public despite the fascists stating they don't protect you. And then they do, and then they don't, and then maybe it takes 2 or 3. And mobile units showing up at your door. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Well, Dr. Michael Ryan, he is the executive director of the World Health Organization Health Emergencies Program. If you haven't heard of it before, listen up. He spoke at a press briefing about 2 months ago in April. And he stated, the WHO has been clear that there is no specific evidence that suggests a mask may protect you from infection. And equally, a mask may provide protection from others if you happen to be symptomatic and coughing. It may stop you from contaminating someone else. But there are a number of issues around the broader use of masks. He followed up with the fact that the masks would have to be disinfected consistently, and putting the masks on and off means you are touching the mask and therefore possibly contaminating it. The WHO believes that masks are pointless unless they are in addition to a much broader control system, one that consists of tracking everyone who may be positive and separating families by removing those that test positive and isolating them away from their home, as he stated at the press conference a couple months ago. Now, this must have seemed like a good idea for Ventura County, California, who followed suit, stating precisely the same exact thing. In fact, they received so much backlash that they had to walk it back. Dr. Robert Levin stated, and I quote, if they live in a home where there's only one bathroom and there are 3 or 4 people living there and those people don't have COVID infection, we're not going to be able to keep the person in that home. Every person who we're isolating, for instance, needs to have their own bathroom. So we'll be moving people like this into other kinds of housing. Other kinds of housing that we have available, close quote. Oh, then the real alarm bells went off. Oh, yeah. And on April 18th, just about 5 days after he made this speech, when the Clinton Global Initiative organized a virtual conference and rolled out video clips with Bill Clinton and Governor Cuomo and Governor Newsom and Chelsea Clinton and Ophelia Dahl of Partners in Health and others, all discussing the need for contact tracing armies. Well, it goes on and on and on. President Clinton was speaking about the importance of building up and properly funding the national stockpile and working collaboratively with the World Health Organization. And Chelsea Clinton was speaking about the importance of coming together as a community, checking in on family members, neighbors, and friends, blah, blah, blah. And New York Governor Andrew Cuomo speaking with President Clinton about what prepared him to respond to a challenge of this magnitude. And Adolph Newsom speaking with President Clinton about the impact that collective action to practice safe social distancing has had in helping flatten the curve. Are you about sick of hearing about that too? And President Clinton about the importance of testing and contact tracing. Tracing those who test positive and their contacts throughout their communities, in controlling the spread of the pandemic and future outbreaks, and the possibility of building a national AmeriCorps-style program to support the U.S. public health infrastructure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But the plan had long been masterminded and was already in place for Partners in Health. Good old PIH. Yep, you got it, Steve. Send COVID-positive people to nursing homes when they had emergency hospitals and hospital ships. Exactly. That worked out really well, didn't it? Now, the PIH, which is the Partners in Health, their goal was to dominate the U.S. in these efforts. And they began by announcing their work in Massachusetts with Paul Farmer leading the way, while Jim Yong Kim was behind the scenes meeting with governors across the country. Now, this is just very recent, okay? Less than a year ago. Less than 2 weeks after Congressman Bobby Rush introduced H.R. 6666 for $100 billion to non-governmental organizations for contact tracing. Partners in Health put out a press release announcing their new contact tracing accompaniment unit, which would coordinate and harmonize approaches across the country, providing small teams of experts, advisors, collaboration, and online toolkits and materials for free, of course. You know, free doesn't cost nothing, right? Except you paid for it. Because they're going to be seeking grants, right? Or shall we say, taxpayer dollars. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Their initial funding came from the Audacious Project, which is a collaborative funding initiative housed at TED that launched in 2018. Their partners included the Gates Foundation, Virgin Unite, Children's Investment Fund Foundation, and about 20 others. Oh, it was big money. And let's see here. Sure, it's up a little bit. They have a page on their website. I'm going to leave the link here. It is, yeah, the link is live. They have a page designated on their website to join their team of contact tracers in Massachusetts. And the scripts for contacting potential COVID-positive people reads more like an interrogation. They have pages of personal questions asking about how you're feeling, symptoms, all other health conditions, race, ethnicity, next of kin, blah, blah, blah. In fact, I was talking to a manager yesterday, and the manager said that this whole unemployment thing that has to do with being able to stay at home and get pay if you have been exposed to someone with COVID. You come into work, you answer the question, have you been around anybody with COVID? Have you seen anybody with COVID? Have you had any symptoms? If it's yes to any of those questions, you go home for 2 weeks with pay. With pay. And there are people that have been doing this for over a year. Over a year. They're still getting paid their regular paycheck to, well, they don't stay home. They go to the beach or go camping or go ride motorcycles or whatever it is that they do for fun, because they're getting paid full pay, but they're on quarantine. Yeah. So here are the questions. Let's see here. Let's think through social or recreational things you've done. Have you had a meal at anyone else's house recently, or had someone to your house for a meal? That's a contact tracing question. Have you met with any friends to go shopping or do any sports or anything fun recently? Have you attended any parties? Have you gone to church? What did you do last weekend? Have you been to any restaurants recently? Did you go to a gym or exercise class? Have you been to any gatherings or social events? Have you been to any sporting events, concerts, other events where there are a lot of people? send Truth Frequency listeners off on their commercial break. And somebody texted me a little bit and said, do you ever take a bathroom break? The answer is yes, at the very beginning of the program. But it's only a 3-hour program, right? So I don't take a break during the program. I used to let the commercials play, and I would put some kind of break screen on there. But now I have all these people that are watching on all these different platforms, and they don't want to look at a blank screen. They'll leave. So I stay, and I talk to you guys. Yes, lemons are a good source of vitamin C. Thanks for the hint. I'll do it. As soon as the commercial's over, bring them back. I will give away the lemons. I promise, old dog. Yeah, the lemons are cryptocurrency on DLive. So if you're listening live by any of the platforms that we're live, if you belong to DLive.tv, you can slide over there and see what your chances are going to be like. Because we're going to give away a pretty good stash of lemons. And so that's the way contact tracing works. Now, admittedly, a lot of this is losing steam because here we are in the summer. And it's like, I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but it was gorgeous today, just gorgeous. It was mid-80s and dry and sunny. Yesterday it was started out in the low 90s, and then it went down into the mid-70s, but it rained all day long. It was a terrible day for riding motorcycles, so I didn't. But tomorrow I will probably ride my motorcycle to work. What is this? In the Foxhole chat room, there's something called the cookie. I'm just learning. Use conspiracy realists. Us conspiracy realists are always ahead of the curve. Yeah, it's true. It's true because we have our minds open and we're not linked to the false matrix. Very good. A lot of good chatting. And the chat room for all the other platforms are consolidated on one sheet over here. So they just scroll all the time. Old Dog's there and Michael 1973 and LA Addicts is there and Steve Y62 and Stoker is there. And of course Mailer Damon always has brilliance to share. And Baba Susie. She's on YouTube. Memory eternal. It's such a damn shame and a waste of good life. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't want to go down to Birmingham and look them up, but I'm so tempted to do so because they were so close to me in the book. All right, we'll bring TFR back in, and then we will give away some lemons.
Administration filing legal action. The former president said the rules imposed unnecessary burdens on business. America is listening to Fox News.
Into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Here we go, final hour. Interesting stuff. Okay, I promised to give away some lemons in DLive, so that's what we're going to do right now. So let me bring that up, and we are going to distribute right now. So in about 30 seconds, we'll find out which one of our many D-Live listeners are going to end up with lemons in their pocket. Pretty good group over there, man. It's a pretty good sized group. The odds are pretty slim, but a lot of competition. A lot of people listening on Twitch tonight. Thank you guys, Twitch. We love Twitch so much. It's a great platform. And 1 second, and there we are. All right, so Steve Y62, 32.1. Old Dog, 18.9. Mailer Damon, 13.9. Storms Up, 11.2. And Michael, 1973, 9.6. So those are our winners of lemons tonight on DLive.tv. Thank you guys so much for being loyal listeners. And, all this stuff is reciprocal. We can give lemons to each other. I'm just generous because I want to reward you for being good, faithful listeners. And if you can't get great content, at least you can get some lemons. I'll try my best to keep the content as high quality as I can. And don't forget, next Saturday, if you're just tuning in, next Saturday is the life coaching webinar. It is at noon Eastern time. It costs $47. You get 2 sessions, one next Saturday, one the following Saturday. The first one is on manifestation skills so that you can learn how to kick off your dreams and set yourself up for success. And the second is on master journaling. So we teach you how to use a journal as a future book, to be able to write the future code so that you can make these dreams manifest using the principles of resonation and my special analysis that helps you to become very efficient manifestors of anything you want. Anything you want to own, anything you want to do, anything you want to be. It is a great, great system. And I don't want to charge you a condo payment. I'm going to charge you about as much as a movie ticket. Gosh, I miss going to the movies, don't you? You really? I miss going to the movies. That's one of my things I used to do 2-3 weekends a month. I would go to the movies. I love sitting there in the theater. I'm kind of a film critic anyway, but eating popcorn, sipping on soda, and watching a movie. Just disappear for an hour and 20 minutes or whatever it is of a movie and disappear in the art. I miss it, and I don't know if it'll ever go back to that. Even if the Made-4-TV-Virus runs its course and is through, Hollywood has been so exposed and so diminished. All of the actors have succumbed to Trump derangement syndrome, and it's hurt them. It's changed them. It's changed their face. It's changed their look. And honestly, I don't think I can stand to look at them ever again because they betrayed us. They betrayed our country. They betrayed our Constitution. And I think there's a few actors, Chris Pratt, others that I have a lot of respect for, but the rest, you can take them. I don't care if I ever see another movie again. I'll watch Netflix, pick and choose what I want to watch, and sit at home in my gym clothes and watch movies. That's just the way I am. All right, let's. I also want to talk a little bit about the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. We are making some progress. Some money is beginning to come in. It's trickling. As soon as we get to our target amount, which is $60,000, we are going to conduct a GoFundMe campaign. The GoFundMe campaigns cost about $30,000, and then $30,000 for additional marketing. So you do the initial GoFundMe contract, and then you run $30,000 more of marketing, and the goal is to try to raise $1.5 million for the deposit on the ship. It's not very probable that it will occur. Less than 1 out of 1,000. 1 out of 1,000 is not very good, but 1 out of 1,000 GoFundMe projects reach their financial goals. So it's the best we can do. I think it's a little better odds than the lottery. I could spend $60,000 on lottery tickets maybe and raise $1.5 million, although I don't know. I have to do the analysis on it. I would feel really bad about spending the money on a tax for the poor and the stupid, which is what I think lottery tickets are. But, the odds are about the same, maybe. $60,000 for lottery tickets and $60,000 for a GoFundMe campaign. It's just, it's what you have to do if you want to have a business, a venture like this. It's really the only thing that is open to us. So we'll do our best, and that's all we can do. All right, let's get back to it. We were talking a little bit about contact tracing, but I don't really want to talk about that because it brings me down, and I don't think any of you want to hear any more about that either. Yeah, I get you, Trucker Will. It makes a good point. He says the same with athletes and singers. When I was younger, my Sunday, when I would get out of church, which was around noon, the first thing we would do, load up the kids, come home, take the tie off, get into comfortable clothes, and make some tuna sandwiches and chips and maybe a bowl of chili or something, and turn on the football game. And we would watch football till like 5 or 6 o'clock. That was our Sunday afternoon. It was a thing. It was a family thing. We would sit around and watch the teams play, and we cheered and we rooted, and then they just took all that away from us. They just made it all a bunch of political crap. And then I don't care if I ever watch another football game as long as I live. I don't care. I mean, it's an interesting game, but I've lost it. It's just, I don't care anymore. I don't want to cheer. I don't want to watch anybody kneel. I don't want to see the protesting. I'm just sick of it. And then the same thing with the singers. I love music. I listen to it all the time. I ride a lot in my vehicle, and I listen to music. I play guitar. I'm a music connoisseur. But then all the singers that I once respected, all the voices and the talent and the great performances, they soured themselves. They went on stage and they openly embraced communism or Marxism. They hate America. Have famous people, actors and actresses and singers who say the American flag offends them. That offends me. It offends me. I don't even want to see them anymore. I don't care if they grow old and wrinkly and die an ignominious death, which is the worst kind of death an actor can go through, I suppose, to die old and wrinkly and ignominious. But I can't look at them anymore. I can't appreciate their art on the screen anymore. There are a few actors. There are a few that have managed to keep their integrity. There are others that, regardless of their talent, comedians and starlets and action heroes, I don't care if I ever see them again. I'll watch Netflix movies. I'll watch Amazon and Amazon Prime. To me, it's an entire multi-billion-dollar industry that woke itself to death. Tony M., that's exactly right. I think we're all sick of the wokeness. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. And Cherokee Drifter, no truer words were spoken. If you ain't doing what you want, you ain't living right. Be the best at what you do, and you will always feel good about yourself and those around you. When you say be the best, I don't want to compare myself to anybody else. I'll compare myself against myself. If I didn't do my best, if I didn't do better than the last time that I did it, if I didn't show up on time or give everything and leave everything on the field, leave everything on the field, play it as hard as I could play it, and be satisfied that I ran as hard as I could. I played as hard as I could. I designed, I worked, I wrote, I sung, I did everything I could do. Then I'm happy. People ask me how I write books, how I get the time to do the things that I do. I make the time. I don't sleep much, that's for sure, because to me, sleep is a waste of time. It's just not a good investment in anything. Get by with as little as I can possibly get by with. But life isn't work to me. This isn't work. Work isn't work. Writing books isn't work. It's fun. I enjoy it. I am rewarded by it. So if you do what you love, you will never work a day in your life. I mean, that's an old adage, but it's true. And I get Steve's position too. He says, I've boycotted Major League Baseball, the National Football League, Coca-Cola, along with all the dark Hollywood content. Yeah. And it's because I earn my money, right? I deliver my value in what it is I do for a living or in exchange for value. And when somebody turns that into money for me and I add it to my wallet, I decide where that money goes. And I decide whether I'm going to reward people who hate this country and who hate my president, or whether I'm going to support people who love my country and love my president. It's my choice. I can take the money and send it where I want to send it. So, yes, that's exactly right. Now, if I were a shareholder of Coca-Cola or Disney or any of these woke corporations, and I saw the CEO come out and say, Trump supporters are not welcome in our store, or Trump supporters, we don't care if they ever eat one of our sandwiches or drink one of our soft drinks. Their stock is going to go right in the shitter. And if I'm a shareholder, I'm saying I'm going to sue that CEO because he ruined the value in a company that I own some of because of his hatred for America. I just don't get it. I don't understand how companies like that can survive. When I was down in Dallas, probably where I caught this cold, when I was down in Dallas over Memorial Day weekend, I met 1,000 other patriots from all around the country, all around the world, really, from Venezuela and Cuba, or not Cuba, but Puerto Rico and Canada. Patriots came together there to support the America First agenda. And we had such a loving atmosphere, so supportive. We sang and we clapped and we supported, and we believe in America. We believe in freedom and liberty, and we believe in honesty. And I didn't see a single protester. I mean, there were several people arrested, but they were spies, reporters that deceptively got into the event, even though they were not invited and they were told not to come. They snuck in anyway, and they were subverting the event. So they were arrested. They were hauled away by the police. And that's the way it should be. So when we come together and we put our efforts together, and I would say something about that old dog, but I'm not going to mention any other TV stations. I'm not going to criticize other people that are in the same business that we are. We all work too hard, and there's no sense in us attacking one another. They can attack me all they want because it doesn't make any difference. I'm so low on the totem pole, it makes no difference whatsoever. But I do this because I love to do it. I don't have to do it. I want to know the value of what I do. I want to know that it's appreciated. I want to know that it's changing lives, that it's opening minds. When I see people that are twisted up in hatred and they've lost their way, they have no love in them, all they want to see is everything destroyed, I feel sorry for them. I want to reach out to them. I want to have them wake up. And I don't mean woke up. I mean awakened, so that they see the joy in having a human existence, having a mortal existence, in accomplishing great things, or nothing, if that's their choice. Thank you very much, Delaney. See, it's the heart. She says, if I win the lottery, I'll finance the trip to the inner earth. So would I. So would I. And I'm all about leaving your revenue channels open. I know individuals who bought a seat in the Senate years ago, decades ago, because they made their money in the dot-com bubble. They played the lottery correctly. They had the right business at the right time. They sold it. They made several tens of millions of dollars, and they bought a seat in the Senate. And they've been there ever since. Do they do good things with it? No, not particularly. They're full of hatred and paranoia and corruption. But it's what they wanted to do. I look at Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe, when he was down in Mississippi, deceived the state of Mississippi, received $5 million to the EB-5 program from China. That money came into the state of Mississippi to build an electric car plant not far from where I was working at the time. And Terry McAuliffe took his photo ops in the newspaper, in the test car, with his elbow hanging out and smiling. And then he stole the $5 million. And he fled the state as a fugitive back to Virginia and used the $5 million that he stole from the state of Tennessee to buy the governor's seat. It's what he wanted to do. Did he reap the benefits of it? Sure he did. Sure he did. He became a multi-millionaire and a powerful, oppressive governor of the state of Virginia. He turned 150,000 state residents into fugitives from justice by demanding that they all turn in their AR-15s, which they didn't do. So he made them all fugitives of the state. And, of course, all that was eventually turned around, but that's Terry McAuliffe. Terry McAuliffe is a corrupt bagman, which is a crime syndicate position, for the Clinton crime syndicate. And so now this is kind of embarrassing. I mean, it's embarrassing for the state of Virginia. Terry McAuliffe is running for governor again. Again. He's so corrupt, he cannot leave the political engine for money-making alone. He's making more promises. He's selling more influence. This is what Terry McAuliffe does. Oh, I would love to see him defeated in Virginia, but I fear that he will win. He has the money, he has the power, and he has the evil, corrupt Clinton crime syndicate behind him. He's probably going to win. And this is the future of politics in America. I hate it. I hate it. And I want to defend the country against it. So I'll stay on the air and I'll keep telling the story. We have about 5 minutes in this hour. And chat room is full of people, all good thoughts. What is it, Baba Susie? If monies were properly taken care of by our leaders, there would be plenty to go around to help finance these expeditions. So much waste of monies by governments these days and past years. And Steve says, can't wait for Trump to come back. He'll make them pay for selling out America. I hope you're right. I would like to see him come back, but I don't know that he will. If I were him and I got a second chance, obviously he had it all. Rich, handsome, gorgeous wife, beautiful children, properties all over the world, health. He could live any way he wanted to, see and entertain and live a golden life, the absolute perfect epitome of the American dream. And he gave it all up. He gave it all up to serve this country and make America first. And they didn't kill him. They cheated him. They forced him out of office by cheating. Cheat by mail. It's a great business model that they now have that works for them. But I fear if President Donald Trump tries to fight them again at the ballot box, he tries to win back the White House, I fear that they will kill him. And I think that would be a tragedy for the world. I would rather see him live than see him as president. Rick DeSantis is a good man. If he wants to run, I'll vote for him. I'm just saying. I don't want anybody to sacrifice their life. Not when they have that. Not when they have that. All right, let's talk a little bit about the core of the earth since we're on the subject. The earth's core evidently is becoming lopsided, and nobody knows why. Yeah, as it turns out, there's a mystery brewing at the center of our planet. I get it, Freedom. There's no fear in death with Christ in your heart and soul. But you know, these days, 70 years old, when you have love inside of you and you have the great faith in America, in your soul, 70's young. 70's young. I just turned 66 years old. Do I feel 66? No. I feel more like 46, maybe. I don't really have any aches or pains. I'm not really overweight. I have good endurance, good brain. Enjoy doing everything that I always enjoyed doing. But I don't feel old. I feel like I'm about a third of the way. I think I could go 180. How about you? I think Trump's the same way. He's kind of a germaphobe, takes care of himself, always been talented, got a great family that loves him. And he could easily live to be 100. And I want him to live to be 100. I want to see maybe the global syndicate. I would like to see them all grow old and end up in old people's homes, having oatmeal wiped from their chin 3 times a day. But yeah, see, old dog, 66 here too. See, 1955 was a good year. That's right. It was a great year. We're like the last year of the boomers, right? And we did all that stuff. Rode bicycles without helmets and cars without seat belts, and it was nothing. It was nothing. Lived in houses with lead paint. Come on. Listened to music too loud, drank too much. We did all that stuff. And we lived. See, Tony M's 59. That's cool. 59. 59 was a great year. I enjoyed it. I was slim and trim and fast when I was 59. Scientists can only see it when they study the seismic waves. We've talked about this before on the program. We're going to let TFR take their break here in about 15 seconds. I don't really want to get too much into this story because they're good, faithful people. We've been with TFR now for, this is 6 years. This is good. We've been on the air. This is our 17th year. Yeah, our 17th year. Actually, we're into our 7th year with Truth Frequency Radio Network. And I really appreciate the audience, and I appreciate Chris and Cherie and the great duty that they do in keeping this network alive, keeping all the people and the network and the systems together. There we go. Send them on their 3-minute break. And we'll talk about the core of the earth when we come back. We have plenty of time. I mean, it's just you and me and a few of our friends. So what are we going to do this week that helps the country move forward? Well, you're going to do your job, and if you don't have a job, you're going to find a job, right? And you're going to start putting your life back together, because the Made-4-TV-Virus has run its course. Everybody now sees that the jig is up. Would you like me to put some links together on my website for things like ivermectin and some of the therapeutics, so that you can get your hands on them? I don't want to sell them, but I'll give you the links, and that way you don't have to do all the research yourself. Would you like me to do that? I'll put that. Okay, Trish, I will do that. If you go to my website at brooksagnew.com and click on the store link, I will add a section for these health supplements. And that way, if you take them, you may get a cold, but you're not going to get any virus. You're not going to get this virus. You're going to be totally safe from that. And that way you don't have to take the jab. Yes, my prayer is that the jab is not what a lot of the conspiracy theorists say that it is, because I have a lot of friends that have taken it. And I would just assume it be harmless to them. All of them. I don't want any ill effects felt by anybody for doing it, short-term or long-term. But if you don't want to take the jab, you shouldn't get the virus either, because the therapeutics do work and there is a cure. I don't know what sea moss gel is. I'm not totally into the herbal stuff, but it sounds kind of gross to me. Having grown up by the ocean, I would say sea moss gel sounds kind of icky, to tell you the truth. I'll have to look up some information on it, Tony. I'm not. Yeah, and I'm with you, Bobby. Baba Susie says, no jab for me ever. Yeah, it's not that I am afraid of needles. I'm just don't want my DNA altered in that way. I did it because I wanted to be cured of cancer, and it worked. So I'm happy with my decision. But I'm also not of childbearing age. If I was, I wouldn't be altering my DNA. Not on purpose, anyway. All right, about 15 seconds, and we'll bring TFR back in, and we'll talk about Earth's core becoming lopsided. Kind of a big story. I'm excited to see how it comes out, because, every little bit of energy, of evidence that we put together about the structure of the interior of the planet makes the North Pole Inner Earth expedition that much more interesting. Okay, let's bring TFR back in.
He was the Messiah of the Illuminati.
EnigmaTV.com.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the lopsided Earth's core. Scientists can only see it when they study the seismic waves that happen when there are big earthquakes. Like if there's a big earthquake on one side of the planet and it shakes the planet, the vibrations travel around the crust to other listening stations around the world, and you kind of do a CAT scan of the Earth. In other words, the vibrations become modulated as they pass through different structures, molten areas and solid rock areas and open air areas, and that imagery shows up in the form of seismograms, and it can be interpreted. So, for some reason, these waves, and there are shear waves, and there are pressure waves, and there are actually what they call in the textbook shadow waves, that move through the core significantly faster when they're traveling between the North and South poles than when they're traveling across the equator. So researchers have known about this discrepancy. They call it seismic anisotropy, and they've analyzed this for decades and tried to explain it to not just students, but also to people who are trying to understand the way the planet is built. I don't think they do a very good job. I think we do a better job in the evidence that we've put together in the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition. And if you want to know more about this, I want to put the link back up here. It's northpoleinnerearthexpedition.com, NPIEE.com. And you can go there and you could read up on the ship and what the capabilities of the boat are and what the team is doing and, all that stuff. You could keep up with it, and you could become a patron of the effort. That is to say, you can contribute a little bit of money each month. It all adds up. Believe me, we're trying to get to that $60,000 threshold. But now, the point is that researchers have known about this discrepancy for, half my lifetime for sure. But they've been unable to come up with an explanation that's consistent with the available data. Now, our team has, but scientists are having a hard time doing it because it conflicts with all the religiosity and the science of planetary core geology. I'll put it that way. Now, of course, they're using these supercomputer simulations of the core's growth over the last billion years. Not that we've looked at it for that long. We certainly have not. But we're able to take the snapshots that we have gathered from the listening stations, the geophone listening stations we have all over the country, and the data we have collected over the last 50 years. And we can extrapolate that in various math models and kind of guess. We call it an educated guess. And maybe it's a little less than that. It is predictive modeling, and it's sort of like using a yardstick to measure the distance between New York and Los Angeles. See, it's a little bit of a small scale. And yeah, you could take the yardstick and you could lay it end to end to end to end to end to end to end, all the way to LA, but no one's going to do that. It just would a lot of work on your knees, right? So what they do is they just measure part of the way and then they extrapolate the rest. And this is what they do in geology as well, especially planetary core geology. So when they say they're looking a billion years into the past, they're not actually able to do it, but they're extrapolating using these mathematical models. And a new study that was done last week was released in the issue of Nature Geoscience. It's a good magazine. A lot of peer review papers in there. Not that all that's important to me. Peer-reviewed papers simply mean that you've passed the muster of other people that have written papers in there and you haven't made them look like idiots. So if you publish a paper and you make the people that have gone before you look like idiots, chances are you're not going to be peer-reviewed and accepted in Nature Geoscience. But They offered a solution that finally seems to fit. Every year, a little by little, Earth's inner core is growing in a lopsided pattern. And it has been fairly recently that we conclusively determined that the core of the Earth is not molten, but rather an iron crystalline structure. And we have determined spectrographically that not only is that an iron crystalline structure, but it is matrixed with the gas xenon. So it is an iron xenon crystalline co-structure that offers itself a molecular stability that we weren't really expecting. In fact, it answered a lot of questions for us with respect to what we call the law of partial pressures. Like I've now drunk my Perrier, but if it was full, there would be a little space here at the top where there would be no Perrier, right? We call that a head space. So the ball that wouldn't be full all the way to the cap. It would be like slightly short of it. And the law of partial pressures says that if I took a needle and I stuck it in the cap and I drew a sample of that headspace, the air in the space of the top of this Perrier bottle, and I shot that sample into a gas chromatograph onto the column, the hydrogen gas would carry that sample around the column. The various compounds in the sample would show an affinity along the morphology of that column, and they would respectively slow down based upon their affinity for, let's say, carnauba wax in the column. And then when they got to the very end of the column, they would hit the flame and they would volatilize, right? And that little flame, that little signal, that little spike would correspond to known compounds that we ran through the column and checked earlier, and we would know what is in the headspace of the Perrier bottle. Now, the law of partial pressure says that the gases that are in that headspace are proportional to the actual molecules in the solution. Okay? That's what the law of partial pressure says, that the concentration of the gaseous particles that escape the surface of the liquid are in exact proportion to the ones that are in solution in the Perrier bottle. And that's what you are supposed to see. And it works that way every single time, except for our atmosphere. See, our atmosphere is kind of like the headspace over the ocean. The gaseous molecules in our atmosphere are in proportion to the molecules that are in the ocean itself, except for one. And that molecule would be, or that atom would be, xenon. There is more xenon in solution in the sea than there is in the atmosphere. The xenon in the atmosphere is missing. It's gone. Like 98% of it is gone. And what was discovered spectrographically is that xenon is actually cross-linked with the iron crystal of the core of the Earth. So we found all the missing xenon. It's in the core of the Earth. And now we're sure, as we study this from more and more locations around the planet, and not just the one or two that we have done these spectrographic measurements, that the core is growing in a lopsided pattern with new iron crystals forming faster on the east side of the core than on the west side of the core. The movement of liquid iron in the outer core carries heat away from the inner core, causing it to freeze or to become solid instead of molten. And that's according to lead author Daniel Frost. You would think a guy studying the freezing of the core would be named anything except for Frost, but it isn't. His name is Frost, and he's a seismologist at the University of California, Berkeley. So this means that the outer core has been taking more heat from the east side under Indonesia than the west, which is under, let's say, Brazil. That'll put it in perspective for you. So a cross-section of Earth's inner core might look similar to that. However, this asymmetric growth doesn't mean that the inner core itself is misshapen or it's at risk of becoming imbalanced. The team's model proposes that Earth's inner core grows faster on the east side than on the west side. Gravity equalizes the asymmetric growth by pushing the iron crystals toward the north and the south poles. This tends to align the long axis of iron crystals along the planet's rotation axis, explaining the different travel times for the seismic waves through the inner core. In other words, every single time there's an earthquake, they can see the difference in the travel times of the sound waves as they go through the core. Now, on average, the inner core's radius grows by about 4/100ths of an inch, which is about 1 millimeter, every single year. Gravity corrects for the lopsided growth in the east by pushing new crystals toward the west. There, the crystals clump into lattice structures along with the xenon that stretches along the core's north-south axis. And these crystal structures, aligned parallel with the Earth's poles, north and south, are seismic superhighways that enable earthquake waves to travel more quickly in that direction according to the team's models. Now, all this means a lot because it is a different way of structure for the planet than we ever thought before. It's changing the way that we think about our planet beneath the crust of the Earth. So let's unpack this snowball a little bit. What's causing the imbalance in the inner core? That's what they want to know. It's hard to say without looking at all the other layers of our planet. Every layer in the Earth is controlled by what's above it and influences what's below it. The inner core is slowly freezing out of the liquid outer core like a snowball, adding more layers. The outer core is then cooled by the mantle above it. So to ask the question of why the inner core is growing faster on one side than on the other might be asking the question of why is one side of the mantle cooler than the other? Well, the theory of tectonic plates is something that just won't go away. There are too many PhDs invested in it. Dr. Elizabeth Williams, I believe is her name. She is a planetary plate tectonic physicist or geologist for Stanford University. Now, I've invited her to come on the North Pole Inner Earth Expedition, and I've invited a couple of her grad students to join us as well. I'm not going to say that a lot of these observers are armchair geologists. That is to say, they live near their computers in California or whatever state they happen to live in, and they've never actually been to the Arctic. They've never actually been to the Antarctic, and they're offering their opinions based upon models and theory, and they're not so much for seasickness or sub-zero temperatures. So when you offer a place on the boat to someone like Dr. Williams or to her grad students, they jump at the chance. Of course, we're granting them the passage, which costs about $25,000 per person, plus the transportation from their school to the ship and home, plus the transportation of all their equipment to the ship and home. So it's a fair investment on our behalf, but we're willing to make that investment because it takes experts like this to validate what it is we want or we think we're going to see on this expedition. So there are going to be other aspects to this beside the plate tectonics and beside the water chemistry. There's also going to be whether or not the lopsided cooling in the core could be affecting Earth's magnetic field, which means somebody has to accurately measure the magnetometry or do the magnetometry on the actual magnetic field of the Earth. And hopefully they're not using CERN that day, which would kind of screw up all the measurements anyway. The modern day magnetic field is powered by the movement of liquid iron in the outer core. And this liquid's movement is powered in turn by the heat loss from the inner core. If the inner core is losing more heat in the east than on the west, then the theory is that the outer core is going to move more in the east too. And that means that the strength of the magnetic field should vary. We don't know for sure. This is the model, but this is why we want to do the expedition. We want to take these scientists on the ship to this location so they can gather those measurements and see. It's a powerful opportunity to see part of the planet that's never been seen before. The question is way beyond the scope of this team's new paper. But I think if we begin to work on this, we pull this information together, it's going to take all of these publications in a great new direction, because it's going to give them data that will allow them to refine their model and understand the way that our planet is made a little bit better. I think it's a great idea, don't you? I think it's exciting. I know it gets a little nerdy, but this is the real world stuff. You know, we get aboard a boat, it's 500 feet long. It has 75,000 horsepower. It's nuclear powered. And yeah, it's new. These are Arctica class vessels. The Russians have the largest, most powerful nuclear powered icebreakers in the world. And we sail out of Murmansk, which is spelled Murmansk, but it's pronounced Murmansk. It's kind of a resort town, actually. Yeah, and it's north of Helsinki. That's kind of crazy. You think that's really north, right? Yeah, it's way up there on the Arctic Sea. So we leave out of there and we sail through these rough waters. The swells are really quite spectacular. If you get a chance, you can go look at what the seas are like in the North Sea. You see some of these oil rigs that are out there, and they're 400 or 500 feet off the water. They're enormous. They're huge. And yet you see the waves so large, the swells are so large that they actually strike the bottom of the platform. Yeah, it's like 10 to 15 story seas. This is not a pleasure cruise. It's like being in a 747 and flying back from, say, London to New York or to L.A. or to Detroit. And you're in a 747, right? A 747-400 or a 747-800, a big airplane, right? It can take 500,000 pounds into the air. And you get up about 40,000 feet, and you get up around the Arctic Circle because you got to kind of go high and then come back down because of the way the Earth rotates, and it's just shorter to do it that way, right? That's what they say. It's shorter. But that plane gets tossed around like a dry leaf in the sky. 435 passengers on there, and tons and tons and tons of cargo in the hold beneath, and that plane's getting tossed around like a dry leaf in a March breeze. It's the same thing for these big ships. You take a 500-foot-long icebreaker and you put it in those kinds of seas. Oh, it's not going to sink. They got the hulls all sealed up, and the hatches are all battened, so to speak. But you're going to be puking your guts up in the room of doom because that boat's going to get tossed around. It's not going to be a smooth ride. And yeah, the 75,000 horsepower is going to be driving that ship ever forward to get to the ice cap. And of course, once you get to the ice cap, then it's going to smooth out a lot because the water is going to flatten out, right? Unless the wind's really blowing. But then you're going to break ice for 6 or 7 days. That's a hell of a trip. And in that respect, this is no longer Nerdville. This is like bravery. This is like going to the moon or Mars. It's not as adventurous as that, but this is something that with the cameras rolling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 15 days, the 125 people that go on this adventure are going to be changed. They're going to remember this voyage like nothing they've ever done before in their lives. And I'm not sure that any one of the 125 would ever do it again because it's going to be that amazing. It's going to be that challenging. And we do it so that we can gather this data and come back and take you with us, by the way, because if you go to npiee.com, you can sign up to watch the entire thing pay-per-view. Yeah, because we're going to be streaming from that ship to a satellite and then downloading it to the European continent and the American continent. And that way, all of the people that sign up can actually stream it pay-per-view live while it's happening. So everything we see, you will see. And you don't have to experience any of the cold or any of the high seas or nausea. I think it's like watching Deadliest Catch from your living room. Only it's going to make every episode of Deadliest Catch look like, Gilligan's Island in comparison. I'm just saying it's a great idea. It's a great adventure. And it's what we want to do. So I appreciate you all being here tonight. This is America Free Radio, and I'm your host, Brooks Agnew. I'm here every Wednesday, every Sunday. I'm live 99% of the time. I very rarely run an archive unless I'm traveling somewhere. And, we do deep science here, and we also do deep spiritual things. We have talked about subjects that require justice. And fortunately, it isn't all going to be about justice, as if it was, none of us would still be here. I have a feeling, it's kind of the difference between God and Christ. God is going to judge. God would just soon wipe us all out with one big wave and start over again. Jesus Christ is a little bit different and says, not so fast. I stand as an advocate for these people as long as they will accept my sacrifice, ask for forgiveness, and try again and again and again. I will continue to beg for their forgiveness. Fortunately, that's the case. So as we approach, as the book says in the Grand Division, we approach the point where society of our world has been divided into those people that hope and those people that love, and then those people that fear and those people that hate. Once the planet is divided, then the gathering will begin. We will all gather together, some on one side, some on the other, some in the light, some in the darkness, and then we will travel home. All of us deserve that. I know I talk about when good men do nothing, evil succeeds. And I do want to see justice. I don't want to see evil continue to prosper. But thank goodness we have mercy. And so I'll see you on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock right here on America Free Radio. This is Brooks Agnew saying, peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and do. All right? Thanks so much for being part of the program. See you later.